More revelations coming out of the Department of National Intelligence. This one will, once again, shows the whistleblower activity that was happening inside and how stressful it was happening, because when you look at the details of what Tulsi Gabbard released, it is pretty wild.
So what we're seeing is that the director of national intelligence, the CIA director, all of these new members of the Trump team are really getting to the bottom of this in a way that we haven't seen before. And they're getting the documents, they're releasing them, they're getting them declassified. And honestly, it takes some time to go through that process. That's why we're, 7-8 months into the presidency, and we're starting to see this come out now. But this one is interesting because this is a whistleblower that worked on the intelligence community assessments. So the intelligence community assessments before the election all said Russia is interested in messing with the election, causing people to lose confidence in the country, but didn't have a favored candidate. Then after the election, President Obama ordered a new ICA before he left office. That's where the tide shifted, and it all became this situation where it was Trump and Russia were either colluding, he was the favored candidate, and that's what sparked James Comey's investigation and then even led to the special counsel. This is shedding a lot of light on how the members of the intelligence community that have sworn an oath to the Constitution, that are trying to defend the country, how they felt about what they were being told to do. And it also gives more credibility to the claims of people like Tulsi Gabbard that this was a years-long coup. They were trying to get the president and trying to make sure either he was out of office or inability to govern as president of the United States. But I want to go through a couple of these things here. This is shocking, really.
Yeah. Remember how we know the previous administration treated whistleblowers.
Right.
This is something that has been on the forefront of what the ACLJ work has been over the last half decade. And that is because we know how they treated other whistleblowers. We've represented so many of them. Now, so go back to your mindset. Remember all the people we've had on this broadcast. We'll even play some of the clips from some of them so you can remember what it's like to be one of these whistleblowers during times when they were certainly not being well treated. But when you go through this list, Will, have that in the back of your mind, that this is that administration.
So this individual was working on these ICAs, was even doing things like the presidential daily briefings. And so they were in the middle of all this, and they were doing what they were trained to do, adhering to the high standards of the intelligence community. And then when all of that changed with the 2017 ICA, this person was tasked with doing what's called a scrub, or basically a review, checking the work of the other analysts that went into this. And when the individual looked at it, they said, you know what? I can't concur with all of these things. And they were told, no, listen, we need to get the Defense Intelligence Agency on board. We need to get the CIA. We need to get all these agencies to sign off on this so that we can really show this is what's going on.
And this whistleblower didn't say, I won't agree with it.
Right.
He said, or she said, I don't have the evidence. You're not showing me the evidence here. If you have it, let me see it, and I will consider it. This isn't some radical on the other side, at least as far as we know.
So this is some of the back and forth. This is over a period of time, obviously, but that is being told by this whistleblower to the DNI. It says that there's reporting you're not allowed to see. If you saw it, you would agree. So first trying to say, like, don't worry about it, just sign off on it. The individual that's the whistleblower said that, yeah, there's actually parts of that I agree with, but I need to review the other stuff to be able to make this conclusion. Then another statement, the superior said, hey, isn't it possible Putin had something on Trump, to try to blackmail or coerce him? Doesn't that sound a lot like it just rings true from the CIA director, Brennan? But then this individual had a debate and just said, look, my own analysis, I'm not going to alter. I'm not going to lower my integrity just to do what you want here. And this individual learned that the Steele dossier was a major part of it by accident. They weren't supposed to know that, but then started questioning that, found out that James Comey was the one who put the Steele dossier in this ICA at the last minute. But then here's where it also gets down. They keep going back and forth and saying, listen, I'm not going to compromise my standards and the intelligence community just because you want to get to a conclusion.
You have a political agenda.
The superior said, you need to trust me on this. The individual pushed back and said, I can't, that's not my job.
Yeah, everyone's had a boss say that to
That's
them.
not my job. And then the individual further reiterated that this ongoing invocation that this person needs to abandon their trade craft standards, and said, listen, your culture, you look at this as though it's almost a pseudo religion, the way you adhere to your integrity, and said that if you didn't demonstrate your ability to outgrow that, your adherence to integrity and standards, they're not going to be able to recommend him for a promotion. And this person still pushed back. Finally, this individual comes very frustrated, says, I need you to agree with these judgments so that the DIA, Defense Intelligence Agency, will go along with them. Trying to say, listen, you're the linchpin here. They trust you, so make them trust you and say what we want. Once again, you lose trust with your other agencies, but it didn't end there, because we know that they still went forward with that work product. This individual tried to go through proper channels.
To be a whistleblower.
Right. Tried to blow the whistle, tried to go to the inspector general multiple times. The inspector general gave them the runaround, told them to go to the DOJ. The DOJ didn't help. And that's when the DOJ was really hamstrung by the special counsel, Bob Mueller. But it kept going for years, even well into the Biden presidency, trying to blow the whistle on this, trying to say something's not right, and continually got shut down. Even a report, they tried to go to John Durham to reveal all this, kept getting shut down. Tulsi Gabbard is now bringing this to light.
Jump to August of 2025, and finally this content is revealed, because maybe he could probably, or she could finally get a meeting, finally be heard, because it didn't fit the narrative. And because it didn't fit the narrative, they weren't going to pursue it, and they weren't going to let the whistleblower do what they wanted to do to actually say what was happening, that they were being pushed and pressured and doing something that they not only didn't feel comfortable with, that they thought was wrong, because it was all about politics. Because that is the problem, is even when the elections are over, because remember, this then happened for 4 more years post-election, even when the elections are over, the politics doesn't end in Washington, D.C. It doesn't end on election day and we go, okay, now we're all going to get back together and work. No, everyone's planning on the next move. And with that comes grave consequences. And these are some of those consequences. It's really unfortunate, actually, that this would happen, and we just now hear about it, and it has all of these key players involved. And of course, you do say, well, what can happen from this? What information can this do? I'm just happy that we're having some transparency at this point.